What is up, guys, and welcome to episode 15 of the Dad's Life podcast. I'm your host, Sean Flac 2.0, and in today's episode, we're going to be talking about the importance of self-care. Now, if you made it here, hopefully you made it here through the blog post I put out on Twitter and on the Facebook page, Sean Flac 2.0, that did talk about the importance of self-care. Now, go ahead and check it out if you haven't seen the blog yet and you're just here because you listen to me generally, you listen to the podcast. I appreciate you. Thank you very much. But head over to seanflack.com to check out that blog post before we get into the show. So if you need to do that, go ahead and pause right here. Go check that out. According to the blog page, it is a 2-minute read, kind of being an intro to what this episode is about. It is our self-care challenge, music as a time machine. Before I want to get into the episode, again, want to apologize to everybody about taking so much time away from the actual blog page. Again, I have been focusing on the Dad's Life podcast and working with my co-host Mike T on Practical Pivot, but I definitely didn't want to neglect that part of what is Sean Flack 2.0. So again, apologies for that, and again, thank you for the continued support. All right, so let's get in today's episode. So to preface, however you say that word, but to preface, okay, I'm getting stuck again. To preface the episode, basically, self-care is something that we've been working on. I took a week off of recording to work on some of that stuff, work on some of the stuff that's going on at home, getting over a sickness. For those of you who have been listening the last 3 weeks, I've been sick, and I'm finally just getting over it. Had to end up going to the doctor, get antibiotics, get like this cough pill that they had to give me, had to get a chest x-ray. It was just nuts. So I did have to take a week off to kind of recover, deal with some stuff at home, and we're back. So while I was taking my time off and thinking about self-care, I was driving, and something I don't normally do, because I normally will only listen to recently purchased or downloaded music. But this one morning I decided that, I'm going to go ahead and put my playlist off of my iPhone on random. And so it was interesting. I'm driving, I have about a 45-minute commute most days. So I'm driving, and all these different songs come on, and I'm just kind of amazed. Like, wow, I remember when this came out, and I remember where I was here and where I was there. And it's just amazing to see how music, or in some cases a scent, or when you visit a place like your favorite restaurant you haven't been to, like you moved away from the city and then you go back and visit years later, and you go back to your favorite restaurant and it immediately takes you back to those different times in your life, or a scent, or a item of clothing or something that kind of reverses you back and brings back all these different memories. So I thought it was really interesting that all these songs came on. I had to think about where I was. And in that thought, I was like, man, I remember when this came out, I was slanging shoes at the Foot Locker. And, then I look at myself where I am now, like professionally. I'm like, wow, I came a long way from that. And, part of self-care is being aware of what's going on in your situation and not getting so caught up in like that daily grind that you forget, number one, how far you've come, and you should be proud of that, how far you are in your journey. But also just be grateful for what you have, because when you were younger, again, if you're on the same type of journey I am, where we want to improve ourselves, improve, our family situation and things like that, you're like, man, I do have a lot. I may not have everything I want, but I need to be grateful for what I have, because it took a lot of hard work to get here. And, you want to remember that, and you want to pat yourself on the back and give you kudos to motivate you to continue doing what you're doing and knowing what you're doing is right. So I thought, man, this would actually be a really good challenge, listen to some old music, see what pops up. You know, a lot of us have thousands of songs. As you buy new stuff and new stuff comes out, all those older songs get buried. So I was like, you know what? This brought me back. Some of the music brought back, and I had put an alternate list up on the blog. So again, check that out. There's 6 alternate songs that came up. And I was like, oh my God, wow, these are awesome. But I went ahead and picked 6. And if you follow me on Twitter, that's at Sean Flac. You'll notice that the last post I put up, or the last tweet, I'm sorry, I'm talking about Twitter now. The last tweet I put up was, I chose, and I'm going to give you the 6 songs I chose, which was The Chronic by Dr. Dre, the original, and I guess the album, The Chronic. And I'd have to say, and I'll get into why and how I felt about this, but The Chronic by Dr. Dre, Die Another Day, the song from the James Bond movie that was by Madonna, and that's a little bit of a funny story. Then Jewel, Pieces of You, the album. Then I went with A Little Less Conversation. I think it's like the JDM remix with Elvis Presley. E.O. My by I'm going to butcher this, K.E. Lee Rochelle. And then it's I Would Die for That by Kelly Coffey. So those are the 6 I picked. Hopefully by the time you're listening to this, you've done this yourself. I would love to hear what 6 songs or 5 or 10 or whatever songs you chose, or whatever songs that popped up in your playlist and where they took you. Did they take you to a place where things were great, or maybe to a place where things were bad, and you could look back and be like, wow, I survived something that, I'm really strong and I survived that situation. Or, a really fond memory, or, it reminded you of a lost loved one, or some family, or some friends you haven't spoke to in a while, and it kind of sparked you to give them a call or whatever. So I'd love to hear what 6 songs you guys picked. So, getting right into it, The Chronic by Dr. Dre. I forget what year that came out, but what makes it so significant is it reminds me of my sister. So, with this particular thing, I wasn't really into music. Like my dad, he liked his old school, love songs, after dark type stuff, and I forget, like Coit, radio station. So he wasn't really into the whole hip hop scene, and neither was I. Like I always was with my dad, so whatever music he listened to, I listened to, but it wasn't really prevalent until The Chronic came out. And of course, maybe I was 8 or something like that, 8 or 9 or whatever. But my sister had the album, and it's like cussing and all this stuff, and then her and my dad got into it, and how inappropriate it was for her to listen to and all this stuff. But that, I would have to say, looking back, if I was like so far back, that would have been the first album I knew about, because my sister listened to it, and my dad was like unapproving of it. So that's the significance behind that. Like that took me back to like, oh man, my sister, she was like, in this funk, and about like, no, it's a great album, great music. And I'm like, that music's garbage. And I look back and I'm like, actually, I love Dr. Dre now. But so that's funny where Dr. Dre song came up, and actually it was the Chronic 2001 song that popped up, but it reminded me of Dr. Dre. And of course, anytime I think about Dr. Dre, it always brings me back to my sister and that little funk issue that she had with my dad. So, Tiff, if you're listening, I love you. This is one of those weird, fond memories I have of you, even though it was like we weren't really vibing with this. Anyway, so that's The Chronic, Dr. Dre. The next one is Die Another Day by Madonna from the James Bond movie with Pierce Brosnan, Die Another Day. This reminds me of my brother Dwight. Now, the funny story, when I start getting seriously into music, I liked a lot of pop music, pop-ish music. And this movie had just came out, and I played this song over and over and over and over and over again, because that's kind of like how I am with certain music. I'm like, oh, okay, I like it. I'm going to put it on repeat until I can memorize the words. So my brother Dwight, every time he walked into a room, this song was playing. And he would jump down my throat all the time about this, to where I made it a joke, and I was like, this is your new theme song. Every time you walk into the room, I'm going to be playing this song. So, Dwight, I love you. You always call me every week, and I feel so bad for not picking up the phone. Obviously the kids are driving. I'm just too tired or whatever. But, I love you, got love for you. But this is your song. The next thing, again, different people, different places. So the Pieces of You album by Jewel, that takes me back. That actually is the first album I bought with my own money. And this takes me back to the time that I lived in Reno. Now, I don't want to get into that many details, but I'll say my year and a half that I lived in Reno as a teenager was not the best time for me. I will say what did come out of it is some of the best friends anybody could ask for in the whole wide world. So, mainly big shout out to my brother DJ. Mainly big shout out. I was in a really dark place at the time. And at the time I didn't know I was, but looking back, if it wasn't for him and his family and his friends that end up being my friends. So, shout out to, Dave. Shout out to, Chris. Shout out to, Josh. Shout out to Mark. Shout out to all my brothers from Reno. That if it wasn't for you, like, not all heroes wear capes, and you mother suckers are my heroes. And they know who they are. But, if it wasn't for them, I don't know where I would have been in that situation as a teenager and in the place I was in. So shout out to them. I love all of you guys. And that one album, with your guys' help, they helped me get my first job. They would help get me to and from school, to and from work. When I was ever having like a bad time at home, I could easily go to one of their houses, or we'd go drive around or hot dog around or whatever. And they saved me. And so big shout out. So much love to them. As much as it wasn't the best place, I learned a lot. I got a lot from it. I got a lot of exposure to different types of music, because Jewel is at the time, she wasn't a big pop person. She was more like folkish, kind of. When this album came out, it was her first album that came out. And so I was exposed to a bunch of different music. Again, thanks to them. And so like a little bittersweet with that album when that song came up. So again, love you guys too. Shout out. Wow. We need to hook up. Somehow, some way, shape, or form. Again, not all heroes wear capes, and you guys are my heroes. Real talk. The next one was A Little Less Conversation by Elvis Presley, and I think it was the JDM or JDX remix. So this one reminds me of the time where I'd have to say that was probably when I worked at Foot Locker. I used to slang shoes for Foot Locker. And I had just came off of like unemployment or whatever. But I want to say that time that I spent working at Foot Locker, a lot of experience, a lot of good people that worked there. I would have to associate that with me being my most successful, or the first time I ever felt successful professionally. When I came on board, I got hired to be an assistant manager. And I just came from like Walmart and some other places. But I interviewed well. He wanted to bring me onto his store. The store manager wanted to bring me onto his store. And that's Tony. Tony, if you listen to this, I'm going to shout out you. All these people that I'm mentioning, I'm going to be putting this up on Facebook, on Twitter. And if you guys are on there, you guys are going to get tagged in it. But that's when I met Tony and, or Frank, or whatever he wants to call him, Anthony, whatever. He's one of the best managers I've ever had. He definitely put his faith in me, and he put his hard work in training me. And we made a really good friendship. I think he left first, and then eventually I left. But I'd have to say, through his teachings and just working at Flac with a bunch of great other managers. Ronnie Bledsaw, if you're out there listening or whatever, you finally get here or whatever, from 8 Mile Evergreen, Detroit. He was one of my trainers at Flac as well. He taught me a lot. And again, I want to say, obviously, I'm going to toot my own horn, through my own hard work and effort and their guidance. It was the first time I ever felt successful professionally. So that's where that song took me. So obviously, fast forwarding in life, we're going to do E.O. My by Lee Rochelle, and I always butcher that, but that one always will remind me of my wife. And it is the song she walked down the aisle to. And it always, obviously, this is, if you don't know who Lee Rochelle is, he's big in Hawaiian music and Hawaiian chant. He comes to the States to judge different like chant contests and hula contests and stuff like that. And if I'm saying all this stuff wrong, please forgive me, but he's really big in his, in his realm of music. And obviously my wife, she loves him. I want to say our first dance was another rendition he did of, I forget what the song was. And it's late, and I'm sure I could find it, and I have it on my like playlist or whatever. I can't remember the song that he did. It was like it was Now and Forever that he did, and I was our first dance together as husband and wife. But the fond memory that brings me here is my wife was such a big fan. We went to a local hula fest where he was judging, the competition. And in between competitions, he was walking around the convention hall, and we walked by him, and I'm like, "Hey, is that Kaylee Rochelle?" And then my wife looks, and oh my God, it is. And she like pushes me to go in the opposite direction. Like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. She like totally nerded out to him. And, I'm like, don't be no punk. You know what I'm saying? Like we walked down, you walk down to the aisle with his music and da-da-da. And it was our first dance. And, let's go get his autograph. Let's go take a picture with him, I guess taking a selfie is like the new autograph or whatever. But so we went back around and he was gone. He was gone. Missed opportunity. Like one of her favorite, music people, performers. Somebody that she really loves. She really loves his music. She could have got a selfie, said hi, all that fan start, and I love you, bae. But yeah, that song reminds me of that memory. It's a fond memory. I love it. I love, how like you totally went all starstruck by him and stuff like that. And he was like having a conversation with a regular dude. So hopefully when we go to one of these other ones, he's potentially, we could get another chance at taking a picture with him. And then last but not least, the sixth song that I chose was I Would Die for That by Kelly Coffey. And that is, I'm not big in the country. That is actually something that takes me to where me and my wife, the wicked Wahine, we were dealing, I'm getting kind of somber. I'm about to start tearing up even thinking about this, but is our time dealing with infertility. When we got married, we wanted to wait to have kids. And obviously, you guys know I already have a 14-year-old, so he's already a part of all this. But we wanted to wait until we got married. And when we started to, deciding to start having kids, we found out that she had PCOS. And so that's, you look it up. It's polycystic ovarian syndrome. It has adverse effects with reproductive health and all this stuff. Look it up. And we went 4 years trying to have kids. And I'd have to say those 4 years were some of the most, heartbreaking ups and downs, like emotions all over the place. If you head over to my YouTube page, and again, this might be a shameless plug in the middle of this, like, weird memory I'm bringing back up. But, the wife, she made a video that that chronicled all this. And after the recording, when I publish this, I'll go ahead and put a link down for that, and you can check that out on the YouTube, the Sean Flac 2.0 YouTube page. But it chronicled the stuff that she went through, and the things she did, and how long it took us. And that in that video, this song plays as part of the background. And if you listen to it, it is sad. It is very sad. And it's basically just about a mom that wants to be a mom but can't be a mom. And, obviously due to infertility or whatever the case is. But it brings me, sadness, but at the same time, it reminds me of our journey that, we had and we took, and everything we sacrificed to have the two beautiful kids that we have. And days when I'm like, why the hell did we do this? I could look back at that video. I could look back and listen to this song, or listen to the, I believe it's a Celine Dion song that is the second half of the video. But don't quote me on that. I'm sure it's Celine Dion, but don't quote me on that. But then it brings me, back to a place of happiness and appreciation, and of the hard work we put into having our kids. And no matter how hard it got, or how hard it's getting, because, they're 3 and 1, I could be grateful for them, because we did sacrifice a lot, and we worked really hard for them. And I'm glad, the wife went ahead and made that video. She made it public so that she could also share her story with other folks that had PCOS, and to keep that hope alive. And it's actually one of the things that's inspiring another one of my projects I'm working on. But that song brings a lot of ups and downs, emotions. Check it out. It is a great song. It's very sad and somber, especially for those of you, if you're listening to this, you're a mom or you're a dad, and you guys are trying to work on having kids, and you don't know what's going on, like, why is it taking so long or whatever. Look that up. The wife didn't even know she had it. We went through a couple rounds of IUI. It's the first level of fertility treatment, and didn't even know we had that until another doctor we had did some kind of exam or whatever, and found out that she had it. So if we would have known sooner, maybe our journey wouldn't have took as long. But again, it's not about the destination. Sometimes it's about the destination, but, look that up. If you guys are trying to have kids and you're having difficulty, and see. Again, it's PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. Wife did not know she had it. And it's a bunch of different symptoms in a bunch of different women. So, maybe that's something that's holding you guys back. Anyway, those are the 6 songs that I chose. And again, it is all in the realm of self-care, of looking back at where I was, where I've been through music. Like, I love music, and I love the fact that I could do this. It could take you back to another place in time, and you could look back at that, and then maybe that's going to be what you need to motivate yourself to move forward, to show, where you've been, and where you're going. The goal is still there. The work ethic is still there. You've already come so far. But that quote goes, you didn't come this far just to come this far. You came this far to get that goal. And, sometimes you need that reinvigoration, that validation that what you're doing is right. And a lot of the times you have to look back, and you have to look where you've been, good or bad, sad or happy, and using music is so universal in so many different cultures. That and food, and we'll talk about that on another podcast. But yeah, so those are the 6 episodes. I hope you enjoyed that. This episode 15 of the Dad's Life podcast. I'm gonna wrap this up pretty abruptly because I kind of went over about 5 minutes more, but there is a lot of different emotion with this one, and I really hope that you guys took the time to take the challenge and do something as simple as put your podcast or your MP3 player or your cell phone, whatever you're using, on shuffle and see what pops up, and see where you've been, and be grateful for where you are, and know that take care of yourself. And I put this in the blog as well. Take care of yourself mentally, physically, but also mentally. Don't forget mentally, because so that you could continue writing chapters, because your story's not over. Keep going. You keep going. If you're going through bullshit, keep going, because things aren't always going to be dark. And just like, things aren't always going to be dark, things aren't always going to be happy. And you need to be able to look at yourself, identify your strengths, identify the challenges you've already made it through, and apply those to get through your daily grind. Anyway, again, this has been episode 15 of the Dad's Life Podcast. I am your host, Sean Flac 2.0. Before I take off, you have any questions, comments, or emotional outbursts, don't be afraid to check me out on Twitter. The best way you could get me, because I get alerts from it all the time, at Sean Flac. If you're on Facebook, you check out the Facebook page, look up Sean Flac 2.0. You go ahead and find my page there, like, share, leave me a comment there. You could PM me, DM me, or whatever, direct message, private message, whatever it is, you could hit me up there. Or you could head over, if you want, links to this show and the other projects I'm working on, including the blog. Head over to SeanFlac.com, where you'll have web access. You don't need Twitter, and you don't need Facebook. If you just want to do the web access, I'll have a link to the Dad's Life Podcast there. You'll have a link to the Sean Flac 2.0 YouTube page there. It's a blog page, so as soon as you log on to it, it's going to show the most latest blog on there, which is related to this episode 15. And then it also has Practical Pivot, which is a episode. It is a YouTube show. Currently, right now, we may be changing the format, but it has a link to that show where me and my co-host, Mike T, talk about the practical pivots you can make in daily life to improve yourself financially, professionally, mentally. It's just two guys, regular guys like me, you, or guys and gals, or whatever the case is, that are just having a conversation about wanting to do better and the little things we can do every day to work towards that goal. Again, thank you guys for listening. This has gone over a whole lot longer than I wanted to, so if you made it to this point of the episode, thank you very much. Again, like, subscribe, share, do whatever you got to do. Contact me. Let's have a discussion about what it is to be a dad, what it is to be a parent in today's society. Hit me up. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next episode. Peace.